All right, yes, indeed, it is. Once again, time for another episode of the Nikka Sports Show. I am your host, Kenny, and I am joined on this Monday morning by my lovely co-host. She's the one, she's the only, Nikka, the producer, everybody. Welcome, Nikka.
Hello, Kenny. Hello to our new and to our returning listeners from all over the world. I hope everybody had a wonderful weekend and welcome to the show.
Yes, it was an exciting sports weekend. We had the start of the NBA playoffs, which I completely missed. We didn't have time to watch any of it because we were busy watching WrestleMania 41 from Las Vegas. And we were watching baseball on the laptop and on the TV and then back to the laptop. And it was just a wild sports weekend. There's so much to take in. And oh, by the way, Nikka, the NFL draft is happening this Thursday night.
Well, that's what happens when you have a sports show. You got to
What else could happen?
devise. Exactly.
You got the NHL playoffs also getting going. Like, it's just a busy time in the sports world, everybody. So
Wow.
buckle up, get ready, get set, go, and stay with us here on the Nikka Sports Show. We've got a great MLB show for you planned today. It is Monday, so we will be doing awards. But before we do anything, we got to mention our guy, Luis Arraez, everyone. Our thoughts and our feelings are with him this morning and hope that he is doing as well as all indications say he is doing after this awful collision at first base right at the start of yesterday's game between the Padres and Astros on ESPN. It's crazy that not only did this happen in a game, but it also happened on a nationally televised game for everyone to see. And we have some thoughts and feelings on this, but we'll be talking about in a minute. Just had to say something before we got too far into this episode, though. The Friars drop 2 out of 3 on the road here in Houston, but still remain the best team in baseball as of this writing, or as of this morning, everybody.
Nice.
Yes, 16-6 after 22 games. And I did some math last night. Just 5 games left until we reach the 27-game mark, which will be 1/6 of the entire season.
Wow. We go into very details. 1/6, 1/7.
Well, I just it's one of those things where you work your way up until you find a number that's divisible by 162 evenly.
Okay.
And 27 was the next number. So there we are, everyone. We're 5 games away. But so we'll see if the Friars can last until then as the top team. But the Dodgers are hot on their tails. They took 2 out of 3 in Texas, Arlington. They were facing the Rangers. This was a pretty good, close matchup all the way through the entire weekend. The DeGrom game didn't get really going until late. He gave up a home run early, but that was it. And then the bullpen kind of lost that game. But the Rangers came back and walked it off, everybody. Adolis Garcia on Saturday hit that 2-run homer in the bottom of the 9th to give the Rangers a 4-3 victory over the mighty Dodgers. I loved every second of that. We watched it happen live.
We did.
It was great. And then they lost yesterday to the Dodgers 1-0 on a Freddie Freeman sac fly. That was the only run scored between the mighty Dodgers and the mighty Rangers on a Sunday afternoon, everybody.
Very tight game, as were a lot of games.
There's been a lot of one-run games this year already.
So what does it tell you about the whole league then?
The league is closer than we think, everybody. Yeah. Yesterday was one of the first times we had Ohtani, who was kind of out this weekend. On Friday, we got late word that he was on paternity leave. So we'll have some breaking news about that in a second. And but before we get to all the breaking news, we should also mention the Giants and Angels. The Giants lost 2 out of 3 in Anaheim to the retirement community, as we call them here on the Nikka Sports Show. But that might have to change pretty soon because the Angels playing some pretty good ball down in Southern California. Maybe all the other teams are rubbing off on them.
Maybe. That's a good idea, actually. They've been coming up with wins.
Well, if you'll remember a few weeks back on our show, we mentioned that the Angels had cut off cell phone usage inside of their clubhouse. And it seems to maybe be paying off some dividends here.
Maybe that's the key to the success.
Quite possibly. Who knows? We'll keep an eye on them as we do on all things West Coast baseball here on the Nikka Sports Show. If you're new here, you should know we follow mostly the Padres, but we keep track of the entire NL West, which is the place to be right now, actually, between the Diamondbacks, the Giants, the Dodgers, and of course the Padres. It is hopping hot over here.
Well, Arizona and Cubs had a fantastic weekend. but-
Yeah, I mean, you have to go back almost to the beginning of the weekend now because the Cubs and Diamondbacks were getting underway just as we stopped recording our episode Friday. And as Nikka was editing, the madness unfolded, especially in that eighth inning. If you were watching, the Diamondbacks scoring 10 runs in the top of the eighth, only for the Cubs to come back and score 8 runs in the bottom of the eighth and go on to win that wild game. We've not seen anything like this in
It was a good
many
baseball.
years of baseball. Apparently, it was one of the largest like combined scoring running innings of all time, and it happened so long ago. Friday afternoon, I don't even think it made it into our milestones list this weekend. I don't know. Well, let me get a brief mention here because I think I did screenshot this, Nikka.
Okay.
So this was a stat from John H. Steinmiller, J. Stein, 1981. Hey, that's a nice year to be born, John. He says today's eighth inning at Wrigley Field saw 16 combined runs. It topped the 15 combined runs by the Cubs and Phillies on August 25th, 1922 for a ballpark record. Per Elias, is that it? Yeah, maybe. The last time two teams combined for 16 or more runs in an inning was May 5th, 2016, when the Giants and Rockies combined for 17 runs in the fifth, so 9 years apart. The 15 runs the Cubs and Phillies scored in 1922 were in the fourth inning. So, yeah, the Cubs and Diamondbacks breaking ballpark records in Wrigley that have stood for more than a century.
That's awesome.
Yeah, good stuff there.
Go Cubs, go.
Go Cubs, go. It was a pretty good weekend for the Cubs, though they did lose yesterday. What, 2-1? Was
It
it,
was a tight game, yes.
or was it 3-2? I think it was 3-2.
3-2.
Everybody, yeah. The game went into the 11th because the two teams traded runs in their 10th inning. With that phantom runner now starting on second, you know you're almost guaranteed to get a run pretty easily. But yeah, it is what it is. Cubs Diamondbacks was nuts. Giants Angels was pretty nuts yesterday. Dodgers Rangers. Padres Astros was just some pretty decent baseball all around from both teams, minus that collision at first base that we're going to talk about.
This season has a lot of good games early in the season. It doesn't take a long time for teams to get going.
Yeah, I don't know if MLB teams around the league just got the memo like, well, if we're going to have any chance at all anymore, we got to hit the ground running because of the Dodgers.
I think
And
so.
I feel like this.
The Dodgers and the Yankees and the Mets spending so much money during off season. Other teams, like you say, we got to hit the
Yeah,
road running.
there is a lot of good teams and there's a lot of good National League teams right now. You know, like when you see all these lists being made of like who the best teams are in baseball week to week, the power rankings as they call them. And you see each of these establishment brands like ESPN and Bleacher Report and even MLB.com, they put out their own, lists. So they're different and they give the fans things to bicker about and debate about. But who cares? The only thing that matters is who's the top team at the end. So all this week to week, like who's number one, I find it to be sort of a worthless exercise. The best team in baseball right now is the team with the best record. Everybody, it's the San Diego Padres, whether you like it or not. That's what the numbers say, and that's the facts. And you cannot argue with the facts. I want to turn our attentions to the Yankees really quick. They had a no-hitter going yesterday. It was Max Fried, but get this, he lost his no-hitter on a retroactive call by the, I guess the official box scorer in the game. I watched this play happen, and Paul Goldschmidt booted a ball off the heel of his mitt, and the Rays announcers were the ones that I had on at the time when I was watching this, and they were complaining that, like, oh, well, even if you wouldn't have booted it, the runner would have been safe. And, well, we'll never know. So at this point, it's like they ruled it an error, but somehow, some way, they did retroactively get their way because the score was then changed to a hit. And a few minutes later, at least, the Rays did get a real hit, so we didn't have to like lose a no-hitter on a box scorer's judgment.
I didn't know they could do retroactive, I guess,
Yeah, I
scoring.
think there should be an unwritten rule that like if you rule something an error in the middle of a no-hitter or like well, it won't be a perfect game anymore, but if you know that you can't retroactively change it before like the no-hitter's broken up. That's kind of cruel, especially if the pitcher is out there still on the mound and you like take away his no-hitter
Yeah.
while he I would have to call time and be like, "Hey, someone needs to come and explain this to me. Like what happened? What's going on here? Why did you take away my no-hitter? What?"
What's going on?
So yeah, I guess big props to Max Fried for not letting that happen, but yeah. I have questions and
Did they give an explanation at the end of it?
I mean, look, I think they had a legitimate argument that maybe it was a hit, but the decision was made in the moment.
Right.
So I just feel like it should stand in a no-hitter. It should be like one of those unwritten rules of baseball. Maybe you don't cross into the base path.
Wink, wink.
Wink, wink. Okay. Wow, there's so much to get to every weekend, guys.
Well-
The Brewers and Reds made some history this weekend. We're going to talk about that in our milestones segment. Paul Skenes Day, speaking of the NL Central, happened on Saturday, and Pittsburgh was not prepared, everybody. We'll be talking about that in our news segment. We've got some rumor surrounding Kyle Schwarber and the Phillies. We have got a juicy little nugget here that came out from Ronald Acuna Jr., and we are putting that in our Tell Me How You Really Feel segment, everybody.
All right.
And we're going to be getting caught up on a lot of injuries and call-ups because we just missed a lot of them on Friday. We had such a busy show, and we'll be doing milestones, as I mentioned, and a little extra innings nugget at the very end, everybody. But now it is time to get on with the show and get on with the news. Nikka, can you cue the intro?
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention?
This bullet just handed to me.
And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
All right, everybody. Well, we had Luis Arraez and his collision at first base last night sort of take over my entire evening. I had a hard time concentrating during even watching WrestleMania because this happened. How can you not? A guy is getting carted off the field, you know, like on a stretcher, and he's one of your favorite players. And it took over my thoughts last night. And I had some anger towards Dubon, I think, on the Astros, who was at the center of this collision. We're going to be playing the clip on our YouTube channel potentially, but if you haven't seen it, I kind of equate this to a drunk driver accident. I don't think he did it intentionally, but I think people get killed every day by drunk drivers unintentionally. And just because you didn't do something intentionally doesn't mean you didn't do something wrong.
That's a good way to put it in that context.
I feel like the baseline is sacred to the runner. And that as a major league professional baseball player, you need to understand and always know that. And if the ball is going over your head or into the baseline, like it's not your right to go and get it anymore. I don't care. I'll argue till I'm blue in the face with people about this.
Well, they are protecting the home plate a lot when they always say the catcher has to leave the
I
room
know.
for the player to hit home or run home. Wouldn't the same rule apply to the first base?
Yeah, there's less equipment involved. You know, like
Right.
I mean, you are not allowed to run over the catcher anymore. You bring up a great point. You know, I mean, you're allowed to make contact, but like you're not allowed to block the plate as a
Right.
catcher. You have to have a clear running path for the runner to be able to touch home. You're not allowed to block the plate before you have the ball. Once you have the ball, you're allowed to block the plate.
That's fine, but would the same rule apply to number one base?
I don't know, and the reason why is because you can run through first base. You can sprint through it. You don't have to worry about sliding or coming off the base or anything like that. You can sprint right through it, and
Well, that's
it's
fine.
why we have such great close plays at first base. You know,
That's all perfect. The problem I'm having here is the second base that was covering the first base, the guy from Astros,
Dubon.
Dubon. Where is his placement? supposed to be? Instead of blocking the plate, can he just touch the plate with his toe? Does he have to stand with a full
I just feel like
feet?
he has to have more bodily control. Like he is not allowed to just sprint through the base like where someone else is coming through. What do you think is going to happen there? You got to have self-awareness on the
Yeah.
field of play. You're playing against people that are running
Sprinting.
some of the fastest people in the world.
Well, yeah.
What do you think is
got-
going to happen
yeah.
when they run into each other like that? It's dangerous. And you know, this is taught in the little league level and it's taught in the high school level on how to avoid these
Collisions.
types of things from happening, like in all sorts of angles around first base. And when multiple fielders get involved, like the second baseman has to go and cover first, or the pitcher has to go and cover first. Like we have direct lines and routes that we take to the base to specifically avoid making contact with the runner. So I just find this happening at the major league level to be totally unacceptable. And, you know, I don't think that Dubon did this intentionally,
No, of course not.
but I also don't think that he should be sort of held without responsibility either. If this was an insurance claim, like who has the right of way, Luis Arraez or Dubon?
I think it's Luis Arraez
I do
because he's
too.
coming
He can run through the bag.
and he's sprinting.
He's supposed to. That's the nature of the game.
Right.
You know, so when you're coming into this place that I consider to be sacred for the runner, and it's just as guilty if the runner runs inside of the baseline into the field and,
Right.
and tries to manipulate the throw from the catcher. I find that to be dirty too, or not dirty, but like unacceptable. You know, like you might not do it intentionally or maliciously, but you should still be called out. Like, and I feel like Arraez got sort of really screwed on this because he should have been safe at first. I feel like they should have called interference on the base runner, you know, but
Instead
I don't
he
think
went to
anyone was
hospital.
thinking about that in the actual moment of the play because it was like everyone was like, "Oh my God, is Luis Arraez okay?" Because he's knocked out.
He was cold, knocked out cold.
Anyways, we got an update this morning about Luis Arraez, and actually we got it last night. First of all, we learned I think it was like around the fourth inning that everything was like okay. He was moving his extremities and his limbs, and he was conscious again and alert and like understood where he was and what was happening, and
No broken bones.
no broken bones. And so that was a good thing. Now Mike Schilt did say he had suffered a laceration or some kind of a cut on his like chin area. And I think they were really concerned that he might have broken his jaw, which I know would require some kind of like wiring in his mouth to get it. If depending on where it is, it usually requires some kind of a wiring of the jaw to be shut for a few weeks at a time. And that metal and all that could have caused him to be out. I don't think you can play with metal in your mouth like that.
I don't know.
Maybe a
but
mouth guard would be able to be worn on top of it, so that is a possibility. But if you're not able to even open your mouth or just very little because it's wired shut at the moment, that will be tough to play with, I think.
Oh, definitely. Well, you can lose weight though.
Liquid diet, everybody.
Not the best, but hey.
Yeah. So, well, our thoughts are still with Luis Arraez right now, and he read a little statement this morning. And I'm trying to find it. Of course I am, because as prepared as I try to get for this damn show sometimes, I'm still not prepared. And now my mouse isn't cooperating. And, Nikka, what is wrong with me?
Nothing.
I hate fucking Windows. I fucking hate them. I don't even know how this isn't even open right now for me. Sorry, you're going to have to do some editing here. All right. Well, Luis Arraez was alert this morning, anyways, after we got the update from Mike Schilt during the middle of the game, we got another update at the end of the night from Kevin Acee of the San Diego Union Tribune, who said Luis Arraez just walked back into the Padres clubhouse and was meeting with his teammates. So that was really good news to go to sleep to last night after all of this traumatic event had happened, because it was just good to get a little bit of closure, like, oh, he's okay.
Right, because I'm sure all the other players in the clubhouse were wondering whether he's gonna be okay or not.
I'm glad that everything appears to be okay. He took to Instagram this morning and said, "Dear fans and everyone who was concerned about me, as you saw, I had to leave tonight's game on a stretcher after a collision during a play. I was taken to Houston Methodist Hospital where I underwent the necessary medical tests. Thankfully, there is nothing to worry about. I'm currently resting and plan to rejoin the team this Monday. I truly appreciate all your prayers and kind messages. I want to thank the medical and paramedic staff of both the Padres and the Astros, as well as those who took care of me at the hospital. Most importantly, I thank God for his protection. I'm doing well now. American flag, heart, peace sign."
Okay, so he's okay to a degree. He might have
Yeah.
a protocol for the concussion.
He seems like, yeah, no word on like if he was concussed. We haven't really gotten an official like diagnosis if there was any, or if he was just knocked out. But I would assume if he was concussed, he will have to go on this 7-day protocol. There's a special IL just for concussions. They don't want to cost you more games than you need to either, I think. So,
And with head injuries, sometimes all the side effects might manifest day later.
yes, indeed. And the Padres need him. They're already short Jackson Merrill and Jake Cronenworth, and they've now lost potentially Luis Arraez. Like, it's a bad time to be a Padres left-handed hitter, everybody, because all three of those names bat from the left side of the plate. So the Padres are really going to need help right now from Gavin Sheets. And spoiler alert, we might have some more help on the way for the Padres from the left-hand side of the plate in our welcome to the show segment, everybody.
Okay.
All right. Well, moving on. One player who was not in the lineup Friday and Saturday was MLB's poster child, Shohei Ohtani, everybody. And that's because good things were happening in Shohei Ohtani's life. His wife was giving birth to their first child, and she arrived on Saturday, apparently. That's when Ohtani posted at least a welcoming message on his Instagram, and it read, "Welcome to the Ohtani family. I am so grateful to my loving wife who gave birth to our healthy, beautiful daughter. To my daughter, thank you for making us very nervous yet super anxious parents. I would also like to thank the Dodgers organization, my teammates, and the fans for their constant support and kind words of encouragement. I would also like to express my sincere gratitude to all the medical professionals and everyone who dedicated their support to us up until this wonderful day." All right. Well, congratulations to Shohei Ohtani and his wife. And no word on if there's a name because I think it's kind of being kept private right now.
Yeah.
And that's good for the Ohtanis. Congratulations to them for even that accomplishment because I'm sure they've been asked.
Oh, I'm sure.
Anyways, he was back and at it yesterday in that Dodger game. Like we mentioned, it was a 1-0 finale. So not a lot of damage done from the plate. No dad power yet for Ohtani, but according to all the MLB establishment experts, it's coming, everybody.
Oh, okay.
Dad power is coming.
Okay,
for
we're going to
Ohtani.
be here waiting for it.
Yep.
All right.
All right. Well, there's also in Pittsburgh this weekend, some news caught my attention on Saturday morning when I was reminded from seeing videos on Twitter that it was Paul Skenes' bobblehead day for the Pirates home game against the Cleveland Guardians. So Skenes was pitching on Saturday as well, but that's not why the fans were lined up 4 hours before game time. It was because there was a bobblehead.
Half a bobblehead.
Half a bobblehead. Yeah, we got a picture of it right here. It's literally from the waist up, and it's framed in a box to look like it was a trading card. Not a specific one that I'm familiar with. At least it's not a Topps like affiliated design or Panini even. It's just a generic looking trading card. I mean, it's cute and all, and it's a nice bobblehead for sure. It's the first, I think, official Pirates Skenes bobblehead giveaway, so I can understand the huge turnout at the stadium for it. And you know, this was marketed as a first 20,000 fans only promotion.
Oh, that's
so
why.
You had a 50-50 chance going in Saturday morning to do this. And as you can see from the videos that we have, and if you haven't seen them, go look them up. But if you can see them on our YouTube channel, then maybe we'll have them. There is some time lapse of all the people lined up, and there's another clip that shows the Roberto Clemente Bridge from far away, and you can just see the long line, like how far into downtown Pittsburgh it actually goes.
So they had to wait 4 hours just to get a half of the bobblehead. And did they all get it?
Well, so like I said, this was supposed to be for just the first 20,000 fans, but the Pirates Twitter account tweeted later that afternoon, "We all saw the lines, an unprecedented response for this unique giveaway. Bob Nutting called me." This is from President Travis Williams, it said in a release statement. "Bob Nutting, who is the chairman of the Pirates, called me, and we discussed how we can ensure every fan coming to today's game received one. I give a lot of credit to our internal team for the quick response to make that happen. More details to come." So, yes, you heard that correctly. If you were at the Pittsburgh Pirates game on Saturday and you did not get a Paul Skenes bobblehead upon arrival, you are owed one now by Major League Baseball and the Pittsburgh Pirates. There's a whole way that you have to go about redeeming and proving you were at the game, of course. So good luck with that. I would just do a Google search and find your way to that redemption if you need to.
Wow.
Good luck. All right. Well, also, speaking of Pittsburgh, we got a little update from that benches clearing incident last week that happened between the Nationals and the Pirates. Andrew McCutchen got a ball very, very near and dear to his head, and benches cleared. Things were hot. Davey Martinez was ejected. Jorge Lopez, the pitcher at the time for Washington, was ejected. And as we mentioned on our show last week, they were each suspended by Major League Baseball for this. Jorge Lopez was given 3 games, and Dave Martinez was given 1 game. Now, Jorge Lopez, being the only player that was suspended, appealed. And Major League Baseball heard his appeal, and they caved a little. They took a game off. So instead of 3 games, he's going to get 2 games of a suspension.
You're cheating hard.
You want to know why I cheated, right?
I cheated. I was stupid. I embarrassed myself, my family, my teammates, my country, and my coach.
Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, bad boys.
So,
that's
bad boys, what you gonna do?
It's still better than 3, I guess.
I guess that's why you appeal, right?
Yeah.
So, congratulations, I guess, on getting your suspension reduced.
So when does he have to serve those 2 games?
Like starting immediately once they decided. Once you appeal, you're given a leave, and once they decide, you're back on justice.
Okay.
So I think he might have already served or will serve the last game now. So
Okay.
definitely served one of those games. All right. Well, Nikka, it's Monday.
Award time.
It's time for awards.
It's me, Ricky Martin. Come on! Hot, hot, hot! Or cold. Yo! Hot, hot, hot! Or cold.
All right. Well, thank you for introducing our segment. This is our Awards Monday segment. If you're new here, we do a hot list. We go over who's hot in baseball. We got a cold list. We go over who's ice cold in baseball. We are going to crown a home run king for the week. We are going to crown a road runner for the week for the most stolen bases, in case you couldn't figure that one out. And we also got a big whiffer award to hand out, the most strikeouts, everybody. Nikka, are you ready?
Yeah. Let's go with hot first.
I'll tell you one fucking thing.
He's heating up.
I hope we get fucking hotter than shit.
He's on fire.
I said it's getting hot in here. So hot.
So hot right now.
Drop it like it's hot. Drop it like it's hot.
Excuse me, pardon me, coming through hot stuff.
Looking for some hot stuff, baby, this evening. I need some hot stuff, baby, tonight.
All right. Well, it should come as no surprise. Number 1 on the hot list this week with a bullet for me was our guy, Fernando Tatis Jr. We did a really long expose, Fernando, and why he's been having so much success at the plate this year on our Friday episode. So if you haven't listened to that, be sure you go back and listen to it and check out everything you need to know about Fernando Tatis Jr. and the 2025 version. This past week, Fernando was 9 for 24 at the plate with a triple, 4 home runs, 7 RBIs, 9 runs scored, 5 walks, and a stolen base.
Amazing. I'm definitely happy for what he did. Amazing to see in front of your eyes. Yeah, he was amazing. He was a great talent. What he did his entire career was amazing.
Now, those 5 walks are getting a lot of attention because it's one of the biggest changes in Fernando's game this year so far is the ability to lay off close pitches in the strike zone and not the strike zone.
Okay, so he's been walking more, basically.
He's been showing more plate discipline, and when you're a superstar and you're able to do that, your pitch selection when you get strikes is going to get better, and that's just a fact of life.
So he's trending in the right direction.
As someone that's entering his prime years, he's 26 years old. He'll be 26 for the entire season. He's embarking on those prime years as a professional. We always say 27 to 34 here, but 26 and a half-ish is going to be pretty close to your prime too. And we're seeing it. And it's great to see. Buster Only on ESPN, he was tweeting out, and they are talking about this on his podcast today with Eduardo Perez, who is Tony Perez's son, if you didn't know, and Carl Ravitch. They are part of the Sunday night ESPN baseball team, and they did the game last night. But Buster Only, they were talking about this, and they're going to talk about it on their podcast again today. But they said that Fernando Tatis Jr.'s father challenged him in the offseason and asked him if he was a good hitter or not.
Ooh, little
and
family
Fernando
drama.
said yes, and his dad said, I don't think you are. Yeah.
Ooh, challenge accepted.
So, it looks like they did some serious work on plate discipline, and he's also made some adjustments to his swing, and we went over a lot of that on Friday, but we're seeing it pay off here. These are some monster numbers. 375 batting average for the week, 483 on-base percentage, 958 slugging, and a 1.441 OPS. Fernando Tatis Jr. was your OPS leader last week in all of Major League Baseball.
Fantastic.
All right. Well, we mentioned that the Reds had some milestones yesterday, and they scored 24 runs at Baltimore. And we're going to talk about that in our milestones segment, but they had a couple of hot hitters on the list as a result of that. And one of them is our guy, the Viking, Jake Fraley, everybody. The Cincinnati right fielder was 7 for 17 last week with 2 doubles and 2 home runs, 7 runs batted in, 6 runs scored, and also 5 walks. That's a 412 batting average, a 545 on base percentage, an 882 slugging, and a 1.427 OPS. Have yourself a week, Jake Fraley, the Viking. And one of his Cincinnati teammates is up there with the highest batting average of the week, everybody. It was Gavin Lux, formerly of the world champion Dodgers. The Cincinnati left fielder now was 11 for 18 this week with a double, 4 RBIs, 7 runs scored, 5 walks, and he also had a stolen base. That's a 611 batting average. A 696 on base percentage, a 667 slugging percentage, and a 1.363 OPS.
Wow. Change of scenery. Look how good he's doing.
He's doing great, Gavin Lux over there.
Yeah.
I wondered how he would handle this, like, quote unquote, demotion when you go from a championship team to a team that is sort of in a rebuild with a new manager. It can be a gut check sometimes, right?
It could, but I think Gavin Lux knew he's going to get traded last season. He just didn't know when.
Who knows? I don't know how he felt about the news of getting traded in the offseason.
We won't know.
But at the same time, I'm glad to see him doing well, and he landed in a good spot with a good manager. You know, you can't argue that. Terry Francona is going to do him well.
It's already doing him well.
Yes. And
based on his struggles.
You remember, the Reds had a couple of 1-0 losses in a row. In fact, they had 3 of them early on in the season, and I think a lot of people were panicking about the offense. Well, you score 24 runs in a game, and you alleviate a lot of those concerns. Okay, well, we're going to end the hot list with a couple of first basemen, and we're going to start right here in Arizona in the desert. And it was Pavin Smith, everybody, for the Snakes, the first baseman. He was 8 for 19 last week with 2 doubles, 2 homers, 3 RBIs, 3 runs scored, 6 walks, and a stolen base. That's a 421 average, a 560 on base, a 842 slugging, and a 1.402 OPS. And not to be outdone was the polar bear, everybody. Pete Alonso, the New York Mets first baseman, of course. He was 10 for 25 at the plate with 3 doubles, a triple, and 2 home runs. He was eating all over the place, Nikka. He had 6 RBIs and 4 runs scored and also 5 walks. That's a common theme on this list, I noticed. There's a lot of plate discipline this week from these 5 hot hitters across Major League Baseball. Pete Alonso was hitting 400 last week. He was on base 50% of the time with a 500 and had an 840 slugging percentage. That's good for a 1.340 OPS, everybody. So those are your hot hitters for last week, and good luck again this week as we reset everything back to zeros. But Nikka, I'm feeling a little bit of a shiver.
How feel you? I feel cold.
You're as cold as ice.
Let's kick some ice.
All right. Well, our first cold hitter this week is Ty France, everybody, the Minnesota first baseman and somewhat journeyman now. I think he was unceremoniously dismissed by the Mariners last year and then also the Reds. But he is now a Minnesota Twin, and he is not hitting well. Last week, he was 1 for 20, only 2 RBIs, 3 walks, and 6 strikeouts. A pretty minuscule card. That's a 0.50 batting average, a 208 on base percentage, a 0.50 slug, and a 2.58 OPS. Just like minuscule, like 1,200 points below Fernando, if you want a comparison. Wilmer Flores, the San Francisco Giants first baseman, was also ice cold. He was 2 for 24 with 4 RBIs, 3 runs scored, 3 walks, 7 strikeouts, and he did have a stolen base. Not quite as worthless as Ty France was last week, but still not great. A 0.83 batting average, a 185 on base percentage, a 0.83 slug, and a 2.68 OPS. Ouch.
It's really cold in Minnesota.
Yeah, it's really cold at first base. I mean, we did have Pavin Smith and Pete Alonso on the hot list, but these first two, Ty France and Wilmer Flores, first baseman, and our next guest on the cold list is also a first baseman. For the Washington Nationals, it's switch hitting Josh Bell, who was 2 for 23 last week. He did have a home run, which gave him an RBI, and he also scored a run from that home run. He also had 2 walks, but he had 3 strikeouts, and he was also caught stealing, everybody. That's a 0.87 batting average, a 160 on base percentage, a 217 slugging percentage, and a 377 OPS. And last but not least, Nikka's fantasy team is going to be unhappy to hear that Adley Rushman, everybody, was on the cold list. He was also 2 for 23 at the plate last week, and he also had 1 home run and 1 RBI. He did score 2 runs instead of 1, like Josh Bell. He had 3 walks and 7 strikeouts. That's a 0.87 batting average, a 192 on base percentage, a 217 slugging percentage, and a 409 OPS.
Yeah, I didn't get much points from him.
Well, the good news is he shouldn't stay on the cold list too long, everybody.
I hope so.
All right, well, with that out of the way, it's time to turn our attentions to the one who would be king, everybody.
I am king, king, king.
It's good to be king.
Don't you know you're riding with the king?
Hail to the king, baby.
All right, and we had a 2-way tie. It was 4 home runs apiece for one Cal Raleigh, the catcher for the Seattle Mariners, and our guy, Fernando Tatis Jr. As far as I can remember, too, Nikka, this is his first Home Run King award since we started doing this.
I think so.
I've put him on the hot list before, but this one was definitely a well-earned, well-attributed. You know, your biases can get in the way sometimes, and but this one, there's no doubts about it. He is the king, and he is the hottest hitter in baseball right now. And that is music to my ears, Nikka.
That's fantastic.
All right. Well, we had a Roadrunner this week.
Meep, meep. Meep, meep.
If you watched any baseball this week, you will know that a certain team was meeping around the base paths in Wisconsin yesterday in particular. One of those guys helping them set a franchise record was Bryce Terang, the second baseman for the Milwaukee Brewers. He was your Roadrunner this week with 5 stolen bases, everybody. Meep, meep.
Wow, 5.
Congratulations. Oh, speaking of the Midwest, there was some wind coming in at Wrigley Field, both in and out to the lake this weekend at different times.
Hey, bada, swing, bada. Hey, bada, swing, bada. Kennedy, swing, bada.
I think I know why it was there.
The wind?
Yeah.
Why?
Why? Because one of the Cubs hitters was whiffing too much, and his bat was generating a lot of airwaves that were in the Windy City air.
We probably felt them in here too because it was windy.
Well, or that's Santa Ana, our good friend. Either way, there was some wind in Wrigley, and I think I found the source. It was our guy, Lieutenant Dan, Dansby Swanson. He was the big whiffer this week, everybody, with 14 strikeouts. That's high.
Full sail.
Dansby, what are we doing here? I mean, I think Craig Counsell needs to work with him a little bit or get him going. We got to get him going. He's getting paid too much money, Nikka. All right, everybody, those are your awards for today, April 21st. Congratulations to all. And if you were on the cold list or whiffing a lot, get well soon, everybody. Get well soon. Don't want to be on the cold list multiple weeks in a row. All right, well, we had some milestones I mentioned, and let's get on with it, shall we?
Get ready for greatness.
By far, my greatest achievement.
We stand here amidst my achievement.
That record's going to hold for a while, let me tell you.
Yo, Adrian! Just don't touch my records. Ever.
We had a couple of milestones in yesterday's Brewers athletics game in Milwaukee, as I just mentioned, regarding stolen bases. And the Milwaukee Brewers took it to Shea Langeliers yesterday, the catcher for the Oakland Athletics. I think that's putting it lightly. They took him for 9 stolen bases in the entire game, which is a Brewers franchise record, everybody. And they just happened to steal 6 of those bases in 1 inning, which was the first inning, I believe. Quite a wild one over there. They scored 4 runs against the A's in the first inning. They were the first team in the division era to accomplish the feat, according to our good friend Sarah Langs. So they weren't done, as I mentioned. They would go on to steal 3 more bases, and that was the franchise record, 9 steals in 1 game, April 20th. 2025 versus the A's for your Milwaukee Brewers, everybody. So congratulations to them, and we'll see if they keep up the running wild ways this week. They're going to have to if they want to keep up with the Cubs, because the Cubs are going to score a boatload of runs this year, everyone.
Cubs are running this year.
They are running and running wild with offense, except for yesterday, but it was Easter, so
They weren't chasing the bunnies.
I guess not. They didn't get the memo. All right, well, we had another milestone in Baltimore yesterday from an NL Central team, and that was the Cincinnati Reds. The Reds defeated the Baltimore Orioles 24-2 on Easter Sunday afternoon, and they won a series, too, by doing so. So a tough road win. But Camden Yards was very friendly to the Reds yesterday. Let's start with all these. They reached base over the entire weekend 66 times. That's the most in a 3-game series since August of 1995 for Cincinnati. The Reds' 24 runs yesterday were tied for the second most since 1900. So quite a few runs were scored yesterday in Reds history. The Reds are one of the oldest teams in baseball, by the way. It was also the first time since 1901 that 10 different Reds reached base multiple times and recorded an RBI. Yes, you heard that correctly. 10 different Reds reached base multiple times, and 10 different Reds also recorded an RBI yesterday.
Not the same Reds.
Not the same Reds.
Okay.
But maybe. I don't know.
But-
Just 10 of each, though. It's pretty
right.
damned impressive. The Reds reached base 38 times yesterday in the game, and that is the most by a Reds team since at least 1901. Think about that. 38 hitters came to the plate and got on base yesterday. Ouch. Baltimore's pitching, we've been talking about it, but if this doesn't signify that the alarm bells should be going off like a 5-alarm fire in Baltimore, I don't know what is.
That is crazy.
Again, this is a team that got shut out 3 days in a row, 1-0 recently, like in the same month.
I know
that they score 24 runs in a game. Austin Wynns and Noelvi Marte did something really special. They were the 8 and 9 hitters yesterday for the Reds, and they combined to have 11 hits, which was the most hits combined by players who were batting number 8 and number 9 in the order in a single game in the modern era. That's a record. That's really
nuts.
Cool. Now, I want to also point out the Orioles used position players as pitchers in the final 2 innings of this game.
Oh, they pulled the Dodgers.
They did, and I don't know if we can take those hits seriously. They do count, but it is what it is. So I guess congrats on the Reds for capitalizing on an awful situation for the Baltimore Orioles. All right. This article goes on to say this was the most times on base in a single game since at least 1901. It was the 5th most, everybody. The Indians did it 39 times in 1923. The Red Sox 39 times in 1950. The Diamondbacks, everybody, 40 times in 2013. And the Indians again 43 times, the most ever, in 1932. As you can tell, most of these do not happen in the modern era at all. So this is a really rare thing that happened yesterday, and I just wanted to point that out. Okay, we got to move on because our guy, Fernando, the hottest hitter on the planet, made a little Padres history yesterday. His home run in the 7th inning was the 135th of his career, everybody. And all of them have come in a Padres uniform, and he passes Will Myers to now tie Tony Gwynn, Mr. Padre, for number 6 on the all-time Padres home run list, and that's pretty cool. I like that it's happening, already. And it shows you the history of the Padres does not run very deep, and this is a franchise that is starved for this type of milestone, I guess, or this type of player. They've never had their Michael Jordan franchise player like this, and especially someone that is mostly homegrown. I mean, they got him from the White Sox when he was like 16, so then that's not a joke. So now the thing that gets interesting is I said he's tied for 6th all time, and I believe if Fernando stays healthy, he is going to move into 2nd place in Padres history by the end of this season, because he's only 29 home runs away from being in 2nd by himself. And then he will only trail number 13, Mr. Manny Machado. And I guess I wonder how long it is before Fernando passes Manny, too. It's probably going to take another year or two because Manny's going to get going and hit some home runs this year. But I think Fernando's going to hit more. And he's going to keep hitting more over the next few years, and he will probably pass Manny. Now, Manny did hit some home runs for Baltimore and the Dodgers before he got here, everybody, so it won't be career home runs. We're just talking about home runs as a Padre.
Okay.
But nevertheless, cool stuff for Fernando Tatis Jr., and we will be watching his career with great interest. And last but not least, on this milestone Easter Sunday, it was our guy, Cody Bellinger, former Chicago Cub. Now, if you don't know, Cody Bellinger, he's photographed sometimes looking a little fuzzy, should we say, in the eyes. And he's kind of developed a moniker of maybe puffing on the magic dragon, as Robert De Niro said in Meet the Parents many years ago. Yesterday was Easter Sunday, but it was also 420, which is a national smokers holiday, everybody. And it just so happens that the player who looks like he's smoking all the time also hits home runs on 420 and has a little Tyler O'Neill streak going of his own, everybody. It's Cody Bellinger with his 3rd straight 420 with a home run.
It's very fitting for Cody then.
It is very fitting, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Well,
yeah.
The 3rd time was the charm, getting the added Easter Sunday bonus.
Also, you can smoke weed and play Major League Baseball.
You can now.
So
we've come a long way, everybody. Hopefully, Cody got to hit his peace pipe afterwards to celebrate last night. Hey, let's keep it after hours and outside the stadium, folks. That's all I'm going to say about that, right?
All right.
All right. Well, that was all the milestones we got, Nikka. And with that, we can move on. We got a rumor.
Are the rumors true?
I love rumors.
Let's give 'em something to talk about.
You're all
vulnerable to vicious rumors.
Well, you know how this town is. People talk and they spread these cruel rumors.
Rumors? Rumors? Spread by whom?
All right, well, this rumor comes to us courtesy of MLB Network Radio, and it is Dave Dombrowski, the Philadelphia Phillies president, the highest ranking player personnel position on the team, talking about one of our favorites, Kyle Schwarber, and his future with the Phillies. Let's go ahead and take a listen to Dave Dombrowski, everybody.
He's not only an outstanding talent, like you said, I mean, what he brings to your ball club and the lineup, but the makeup of him, what he brings, he's a genuine leader. And I think, as you're aware, in today's game, and even throughout time period, it's hard to define that you have real big leadership on your club. It's sort of tough to find. And he is definitely that. I absolutely love him. He's as good a guy as you can put on a ball club. We hope to keep him to be a Philly for years to come. You can be assured of that. Contract negotiations always keep that internal, because I just never have found any benefit by talking about it publicly. But he is a guy we'd like to stay, not only because of the ability, but the other parts that he brings to the club, as you mentioned. And he really, the intangible aspect of it is off the charts, and one of the best I've ever had on a ball club.
All right, Nikka. Well, will you please so kindly give me the peripherals right now on Kyle Schwarber? When is what is his current contract status, and when is it up?
Well, his current status, he's a free agent at the end of this season.
Oh.
2025. So
Kind of coming soon, everybody.
yes. And now, is he gonna get extended, or is he gonna be a free agent at the end of the season?
Yeah, it's an interesting one for me. What's his age right now?
He's 32.
Okay.
And his last contract was for $79 million for 4 years with the Phillies.
Wow.
So he was making $20 million, around 20.
It's interesting about Kyle. He's got a lot of service time already. I mean, when you look at the calendar, it's 10 years almost since the Cubs won the World Series.
Are they going to extend Kyle for a couple more years? Potentially. I mean, he fits well with the organization.
He is going to be a valuable player. He's a DH, and he doesn't have to play the field anymore. And he's just going to be valuable because of his
power.
He's a really, truly the old embodiment of what you wanted in a DH hitter, aside from Ohtani, I guess. But he is the DH embodied, really. We call him the little Bambino. And, I remember Kyle Schwarber he's just a really good baseball player.
His baseball IQ, it reminds me a little bit of Jackson Merrill, because that's all they talk about is baseball.
Yeah, he's a baseball guy through and through. And I think he's probably going to play until he can't play anymore. When I look at a guy like Max Muncy, who is, 35, 36 now, and he is playing for the Dodgers still in the field, Kyle Schwarber is going to be playing for a while still in this game. He loves baseball, and he's going to be a valuable. I mean, I could see him going to Seattle and helping out from the left side of the plate up there. They need guys like him from the left side. I could see him going to the Padres and being a DH in the future. I could, who knows? But he's got a lot of value to a lot of teams from the left side of the plate, and especially
he'll be great fit with Mariners if he wants to go that route.
If he wants to get paid and somebody wants to pay him more than the Phillies. Now, I want to say this before we move on. I think the Phillies are going to sign him.
I do too.
And maybe even for the rest of his career. I don't know if they're going to overpay for him, but I think they might have a mutual respect and want to get this done. I think Kyle likes playing there. I think he likes playing with Bryce Harper and Trey Turner and Nick Castellanos, and he doesn't want to break the band up. So he wants to continue to be in the band. I think this does get done, and whether it happens in the offseason as free agency is upon us or before then, I don't know if it matters. I think it gets done.
I think he might stay with the Phillies, personally.
All right, well, those are all of today's rumors. We just had the one. So good luck, Kyle. I hope you get extended and you get to spend some time in Philadelphia for the rest of your career, because you seem happy there. But in the meantime, we got to switch it up a little bit, and it's time to hear from somebody and how they really feel, Nikka.
They didn't even ask how I'm feeling.
You don't know how I feel! You
want answers.
I want the truth.
You can't handle the truth.
Search your feelings. You know it to be true.
Maybe you can tell him how I really feel.
I got something to say.
It's not any better. Say what you gotta say.
All right, well, this time we have Ronald Acuna Jr., who had some interesting words on Twitter. I think this was Saturday evening. Now, if you were not watching the Braves game on Saturday night, and you probably weren't, they were playing the Twins, and both teams are not off to the best of starts this year. But the Braves, Jared Kelenic, their left fielder, he hit a ball and he thought it was a home run. And he started jogging towards first base and doing his little prima donna dance. And guess what? It hits off the top of the wall and it's not a home run. So the ball's coming back in and he winds up getting thrown out at second base.
Okay.
Trying to make it into a double because he was loafing out of the box. And after the game, a reporter for the Braves, or I guess at the game, asked Braves manager Brian Snitker about this. It was MLB Bowman, Mark Bowman. Someone asked him, I missed Snit's comment on Kelenic's lack of hustle and getting thrown out at second last night. And Mark Bowman responded to this person on Twitter saying he protected Kelenic by replying, quote, "Was I supposed to?" when asked if he had anything to say to Kelenic. He certainly could have said something, seeing how Kelenic's home run trot put him on the dugout side of the first base coach's box when the ball hit the wall. I mean, yeah, when the ball hit off the fence, he was basically still running past the Braves dugout in perfect view of Brian Snitker. Anyways, this back and forth exchange on Twitter caught the attention of Braves player Ronald Acuna Jr., everybody, who actually responded to Mark Bowman and said, if it were me, they would take me out of the game.
So you think there's a double standard?
Well, that might be true, Nikka, because it turns out evidence exists of Ronald Acuna Jr. being treated quite differently by Brian Snitker back in 2019 when this happened on an August 18th game. Brian Snitker removed Ronald Acuna Jr. from a game in which he did the very same exact thing that Brian Kelenic did. He did not run out a ball out of the box, and unlike Kelenic, he was not thrown out at second. He was held to just a single. Okay. So he did reach first base safely. But nevertheless, Ronald Acuna Jr. got taken into the tunnel in the middle of the game, reprimanded for this, apparently, and then was replaced in that game.
So he was removed from the game completely because of it.
Yes. Also, Snitker was asked about this afterwards of that game, and this is what he said at the time. He said, he didn't run, quote, "You've got to run. It's not going to be acceptable here. As a teammate, you're responsible for 24 other guys, and that name on the front is a lot more important than the name on the back of the jersey. You can't do that. We're trying to accomplish something special here."
Wow, what a different approach.
So,
I mean, it's
a little bit interesting, isn't it, though, that your franchise player, Ronald Acuna Jr., they're not going to forget moments like this when it happens to them, especially when it's 2019 here, and we're talking about a guy who was a rookie in 2018. So he's in his second year, and he hasn't done any of the amazing things yet. He hasn't done 40-40 or 40-70 or won a World Series. And he wasn't a part of that World Series run even in 2021 for the Braves. Anyways, this was shocking to hear, and so I'm really surprised that Ronald Acuna Jr. took this public.
Well,
I'm not surprised that he was upset about it, but I'm surprised that he took it public. And I think some people in the Braves organization were also surprised because the tweet was removed an hour later from Ronald Acuna Jr.'s account. Now, the problem is the internet has a long memory, and now everyone, including Yahoo and Sports Illustrated, is running it.
They made it worse by removing the tweet.
Whether the tweet was removed or not, the tweet was made, and so it's going to be a topic now. Does Brian Snitker treat players differently? Like, the problem with Brian Snitker and what he did is he told the press after that game in 2019, like, this is how we do things here, and it's about the name on the front of the jersey, not the back of the jersey. And yet it seems like either the standards have changed in Atlanta or Brian Snitker's standards have changed, but I think this is grounds for managerial removal here. Like I know he's a nice story and he's been with, but if you care about your franchise player, you got to make a change here because Ronald Acuna Jr. is never going to respect Brian Snitker ever again. Never.
He's been there for
Not when
way
you
too
treat
long.
players differently.
The manager has been there for a little bit too long. Look how bad they are doing this season.
Yeah, they didn't come out hitting the ground
They
running.
haven't.
They came out like a team that was waiting to get Spencer Strider and Ronald Acuna Jr. back. And then on top of it, they lose Jurickson Profar to the PED suspension. And it's like they gave up as soon like they were already 0-4 against the Padres, and it's like, oh well, fuck this.
They did well. I don't know if they gave up because Marcell Ozuna is still hitting bombs when he can.
Of course, they're not going to give up. These guys are competitive. They're going to go out and play. But I mean, I'm just talking about like as a team. They're
Right, as a-
lethargic. They're finding ways to lose.
Yes.
They're not finding ways to win. And as a whole, I
At
think
some
it's so
point-
funny to me. Like there's, a couple years ago, the Braves were looked at as like the marquee organization in baseball. They had signed up and locked up a lot of their young players for years and years
I
to
remember.
come. They had built this new like park around their ballpark for fans and everyone to enjoy. It was like Braves world over there.
Oh yeah, everybody was talking about how great the Braves are and how great their philosophy for future is.
Model organization, Nikka.
Yes.
Model organization. And yet here we are now, and there's dissension in the ranks with your franchise player. Let's face it. No one else on the team is doing 40-70 numbers.
No, Acuna is a player that they decided to build their team around.
And they got him at a bargain.
They did.
He's playing on a similar. He got one of these similar contracts back then, 8 years, $100 million, and he's only making like $12.5 million a year on the average for 8 years. I mean, come on, you're getting a steal of Ronald Acuna Jr. at that price. Now I know he's had the 2 knee surgeries, so maybe that balances out a little bit. But you also won a ring. You also had a 40-70 season with him, which you marketed to death and sold how many jerseys for. So I don't really want to hear it right now. And like I guess I feel like Atlanta this is not going to end well here. If your star player is taking to Twitter to criticize the manager at a game that he's not even at, because he's still rehabbing, by the way. He's not in the dugout watching this happen. He's watching it happen from afar. And it's bothering him that much that he goes on social media to take to task what the manager said. And like I said, he's never going to forget that moment with Snitker in 2019 in the tunnel. He's never going to forget that. But Snitker did forget it. And
Well, of course.
that's what's really more important here. Is Snitker's the one that's lost his ways. How can you command a locker room of men now?
Exactly.
I mean, this is like Matt Eberflus for the Bears all over again.
Yeah, he lost the locker room.
He lost the locker room, and the sooner the Braves admit that to themselves, the sooner they're probably going to be better off, honestly. But if they don't make some changes, I mean, are you going to lose Acuna?
Well,
Is he going to basically be like, trade me, I want out of here?
I don't know if they can because he's still under a contract for one more season. And he's
I know,
rehabbing.
but at the same time, it's like this is going to get ugly.
I know, but look at what happened with the Red Sox and Rafael Devers. It was ugly.
I just want to put the ball in the court of the Atlanta Braves for 1 second before we move on and just say, if you're the Braves and you see this situation, like, you got to be pissed a little bit at the guy for taking his personal grievances public.
Sure.
You also probably look at the situation and say, we won a World Series without this guy. How valuable is he really? Is he a team player or is he a personal player?
Good point.
Anyways, I guess I think the Braves have to make a choice about whether they want to continue to build around Ronald Acuna Jr. and make him the franchise player of their organization or not. And they need to figure out if that should be done with Brian Snitker or not. I think if they want to keep Ronald Acuna Jr., then you might want to get rid of Brian Snitker before he's activated from the injured list, because it doesn't seem like they have a liking for each other, or at least it seems like Acuna is not going to forget this anytime soon. Let me put it that way. And if you don't have the respect of your superstar franchise player, then how the hell can you have the respect of anyone else in the locker room?
Acuna was 19, right? When that happened? 19, 20.
Yeah, but it still is like a
Well, I'm
standard,
sorry, he was
and it's the
20.
way Snitker addressed it with the media.
Yeah. I understand. But that whole encounter had a lot more impact on young Acuna's development versus on the manager.
I know.
That's why it's going to stay with him for a long time.
Yes, our life lessons stay with us more when they happen to us and not necessarily by the disciplinarian.
Right.
The disciplinarian might be like, oh, did that happen? Oh, I guess.
Right. It doesn't involve emotions on
I
that
think
part.
It's the inconsistency that's a problem, you know,
Yes.
and it sucks for Brian Snitker in a way, but at the same time, like I really understand where Acuna is coming from here. You don't want to be treated differently because you get paid more or because you are looked at in a different view or you're supposed to accomplish more in the game, you know, or something like, so you have to be harder on this person so they learn these lessons. I don't know. It's just bad to be inconsistent. I don't have a problem with disciplining a player. I really don't. But you got to apply it consistently and evenly across the board, no matter if the guy makes $25 million a year or $2 million a year. It doesn't matter.
Wasn't this the purpose of the manager, to manage the egos?
We'll wait and see how this unfolds. I like I said, I have a hard time seeing how they're going to share the dugout in the locker room now, you know, going forward. I really do. So it'll be interesting to see how the Braves decide to go forward.
Okay.
All right, Nikka. Well, we are going to move on and call a doctor. All right. Well, we got a few injuries to get through here, everybody. And I wanted to start with Martin Perez, our guy from the Padres playoff run last year. He signed with the Chicago White Sox in the offseason, and he is now going on the 60-day injured list, everybody. He left a game last week with forearm soreness and was put on the 15-day IL, and now, without any updates, all we know is that he has been moved to the 60-day IL. So it sounds like there's some problems with Martin Perez. We will update you when we know more, but the southpaw out for a while. Nick Sandlin, a Toronto relief pitcher, has a right lat strain. That's a pretty big loss for them. He had pitched in 10 games already this year, everybody. That's like 40% of your team's games or more. And not doing too bad either with 10 strikeouts in 8 innings. So a big loss for Toronto's bullpen. Speaking of bullpen losses, A.J. Puck is out for the Diamondbacks on the 15-day IL with inflammation in his left elbow. Waiting for updates on this. We always get nervous when we hear the inflammation in the elbow story because it seems like 9 out of 10 times we get a Tommy John story to follow. John Brebbia, everybody, a Detroit relief pitcher, is on the 15-day IL with right triceps strain. So the Padres will not have to face John Brebbia as they head to Detroit. Blake Trinan, everybody, a Los Angeles Dodgers relief pitcher, is on the 15-day IL with forearm tightness. So more forearm tightness going around. And, man, he's a big part of the Dodgers bullpen. So we'll have to see how they hold up. Justin Steele, update. According to manager Craig Counsell, Justin Steele had a revision repair of the ulterior cruciate ligament, or the ulnar, I don't remember what it's called, the UCL, the big ligament that is in the elbow for pitchers. Now, they did not call this a Tommy John surgery, and I just think they're playing word salad here a little bit, but it's still kind of a Tommy John, and it's still going to be out for a year. So the soonest he'll be out on a mound is a year from now.
It's a Tommy John.
And Grayson Rodriguez, everyone. Speaking of Orioles pitching and the need for it, one of those reasons is because their big righty, Grayson Rodriguez, he has been out the entire season so far. First, he was out for elbow and triceps tightness. And now he has gone in for an MRI on his shoulder, and he is getting a second opinion from a doctor to discuss those results. This sounds awful. This sounds like it's headed towards some kind of a shoulder surgery or arm surgery of some type. And you just wonder if the elbow and forearm tightness was causing him to overutilize the shoulder then to compensate and make things worse.
Potentially. Wow.
So some pitching injuries, and now we move on to the position players. It was Ezekiel Tovar, the shortstop for Colorado, one of their good young players. He is on the 10-day injured list with a left hip contusion. Jason Hayward of our San Diego Padres, he is on the 10-day IL now with left knee inflammation. I don't remember this happening in an actual game. So, yeah, not sure when exactly it occurred, but this was announced before the game Friday in Houston. Griffin Conine, the son of Mr. Marlin, Jeff Conine, he has a dislocated shoulder, and his IL time is uncertain right now. I'm guessing he might be headed for the 60-day, but maybe it's not serious. Maybe it's like Fernando's a few years ago where he can be popping it back in and heal up over a couple weeks and be ready to go. I'm wishing him the best because he was kind of having a fun season already. Great defensive player. Richie Palacios of the Rays is on the 15-day IL with a right 15-day IL with a right knee sprain. He's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. I thought that was a long time for a knee sprain, Nikka.
Oh, wow. That is a long time.
Brandon Marsh on the Phillies is now on the 10-day IL with right hamstring strain. So he is going to be missing in action for a little bit. We've seen how like Jackson Merrill went on the 10-day IL, but he's actually going to probably wind up missing more like 20 to 25 days. So 10-day doesn't necessarily mean just 10 days, just to clarify. Another hamstring injury that we must talk about is Kerry Carpenter of the Detroit Tigers. He has right hamstring soreness. He was removed from yesterday's game, and I wrote big question marks by this because we have no idea yet if he's going to be out or put on the IL or anything until probably later today. And yeah, this is going to impact the upcoming series with the Padres that starts tonight. So, yeah, maybe seeing the Tigers at a good time. No Scooble either. That's right, Scooby-Doo. Okay, well, those were all the injuries I wanted to get through and get us caught up on. And without further ado, with some of these injuries, brought some players that we need to welcome to the show, Nikka.
Did you hear what I said? I mean, I'm going to the show.
Might like to go to the show.
What you need is a curveball, huh? In the show, everybody can hit a fastball.
Let me go to the show.
Yeah, I was in the show. I was in the show for 21 days once. 21 greatest days of my life.
I've got to let it go.
You don't know shit, all right? You want to make it to the show, you'll listen to me.
And just enjoy the show.
All right, well, I'm going to do this kind of rapid fire because we got a lot to get through. But I'm going to try and start with the pitchers here. It was Sarin Lau. Not Sauron, but Sarin Lau for the Seattle Mariners, a right-handed pitcher who's 25 years old. He has been called up. Now, he has not pitched yet, so he has not officially made his major league debut, but he is on the roster and traveling with the team. Another person who has not pitched yet is a right-handed pitcher from Milwaukee, Logan Henderson. He has been called up. He's traveling with the team, but he has not pitched in an actual game yet. But someone who has played in a game for the Brewers is Caleb Durbin. He is their new second base, third base utility infielder call-up. He is 2 for 11 so far with an RBI, a stolen base, and 2 runs scored. Not a bad little start. Another pitcher who got called up for the St. Louis Cardinals is a relief pitcher, Matt Svanson. He actually pitched last week on 4/17, but we didn't get to it. So he has so far thrown an inning and given up 1 hit, and I haven't seen any more stats for him. It's possible he's already been sent back down. So nice knowing you, Matt Svanson. We'll see you again, I'm sure. Edgar Cuero, a catcher for the Chicago White Sox who went viral last week with his call-up video. He is now 4 for 14 to start off his career in the major leagues with 3 RBIs. That's a .286 batting average for the Pale Hose, the Chicago White Sox. Nice start to your career, Edgar. Maybe things are turning on the south side, Nikka. All right, another position player who is on the younger side of things, 24, Tirso Ornelas is getting his first opportunity in the majors thanks to that Jason Hayward knee inflammation. Tirso had an interesting day getting here because he was apparently called up late Friday night or early Saturday morning and went to the airport for an early morning flight out of Albuquerque to Houston, except that the flight got canceled and delayed and canceled again, and he wound up having to drive. And I don't know when he got there, but he was actually dressed and pinch hit one time in the game Saturday night. So he was. I heard someone tweeting about it that he had actually arrived, after the game started. So he got there, got dressed, and got an at-bat in, everybody. Congratulations on making your Major League debut. All right, we're going to turn our attentions to the Tampa Bay Rays, everybody, who welcome outfield prospect Chandler Simpson to the Major Leagues. This is a highly touted prospect. He's 2 for 8 to start his career with an RBI, a run scored, and a stolen base, everybody. Elsewhere, we also saw Twins second baseman Luke Keashall, Keaschall. He is off to a very fast start in his major league career, going 4 for 12 in his first 3 games with 2 RBIs, a run, and a stolen base. So not a bad debut at all for that young man in Minnesota. And we're going to end with the Fish, who brought up a couple of prospects as well. Agustin Ramirez, he has just been promoted this morning, everybody. He's a catcher, he's a DH, and he's a first baseman, according to the profile I read. And Patrick Monteverde, a relief pitcher, a left-handed pitcher. He had a rough first outing. He went 3.2 innings in relief, struck out 4 guys, but also gave up 4 earned runs, 9 hits, and a walk. So he got kind of knocked around a little bit. Good luck in your next outing, Patrick Monteverde, because I like your name and I want to say it more. All right, Nikka, we're all caught up on injuries and we're all caught up on welcome to the shows. And that leaves us with some extra innings.
Extra, read all about it.
I wanted to draw attention to another article from last week. It's actually from last Monday. It's a week old already. But before we forget about its existence, I wanted to talk about it. This is from Sherry Bell in Yahoo Sports last Monday. And it says, San Diego Padres play, quote, Schilt ball. And Nikka, I was really excited to see this article come out, and we've been talking about Mike Schilt, and we talked a lot about him on last Friday's episode, and unfortunately we were unable to get this part of it in there, but I wanted to not forget about it and wanted to bring attention to it because I'm just so excited and happy to see Mike Schilt start to get some of the credit and recognition he deserves. His whole situation in St. Louis is so weird how he left. I still don't think we'll ever know any of the real behind the scenes things that happened there. But after making the playoffs every year as manager, he is fired.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a blessing in disguise because our San Diego Padres got one of the most underrated and I think one of the best strategists in baseball today, Mike Schilt. And to have a brand of baseball now named after him, Schilt Ball, literally. And that's the brand that our Padres are playing right now. I love it. It reminds me a lot of the 2005 White Sox with Ozzie Guillen. They have players that are just willing to do whatever it takes to win a game as a team, and a team that always is going to use all 27 at-bats, and not give up until all 27 outs are recorded. We've seen it time and time again with how they come from behind or how they play through adversity, like last night after losing Arraez in the first inning and then playing through that and coming out with a W. And I almost think last night was the most important win yet for the Padres. The way you saw Schilt hugging Manny and Fernando while Arraez was laying unconscious on the ground, you could just tell, like, this is a close-knit group of guys already in April, and I think they really are capable of doing special things together this year as a team. And I credit their manager with creating that culture, creating that clubhouse of family, and also, like, playing it to a fault sometimes. I see a lot of Padres fans upset that, like, Yoli Gurriel is still on the roster and Jason Hayward is still on the roster, and these guys are washed and they're old. And, like, I'm sorry to tell you this to those fans, but Mike Schilt is going to give those players as long of a leash as he wants, and they're going to get the benefit of the doubt still because of this family culture that is being created around this team. So anyways, that was my extra innings. If you haven't seen this article, go check this out, Schilt Ball. And I just love that we have a brand of baseball, everybody, named after our manager.
Cool.
Absolutely. All right, Nikka. Well, with that, it's time to move on to some matchups, everybody. And boy, oh boy, we got some good ones starting tonight and tomorrow. But no Thursday matchups starting this week. So everything on Monday and Tuesday is going to be over by Thursday, and nothing new will start again until Friday. So without further ado, it is the Padres visiting Detroit, taking on the Tigers. 3-game set. The White Sox are already underway and almost finished probably in Boston because they started playing at like 11 a.m. today, damn it. And that's 8 a.m. over here on the West Coast. But that is the 4th game of their series, and they are wrapping it up today. The Yankees and Guardians are playing in Cleveland tonight. The Reds and Marlins are getting underway in Florida and Miami. The Phillies, this one is circled for me, everybody. The Phillies are headed to the Big Apple to face the Mets. NL East action getting going. The Cardinals are taking on the Braves, the aforementioned Braves. We'll see if Acuna has anything to tweet out during this game, Nikka. Blue Jays are heading down to Houston to take on those pesky Astros that we just saw. The Brewers are headed to San Francisco. The Giants are probably glad to be home. They have had a long road trip to the Yankees and then to the Philadelphia Phillies, and then over the weekend to the Angels. So a really long road trip for the Giants. They welcome the Brewers for 4 games. Tomorrow, the Orioles are hosting the Nationals in a little Maryland-Baltimore action, I guess. They're neighbors. The Mariners and Red Sox are playing each other, and the Rockies are playing at the Royals. The Dodgers will be starting a 2-game series with the Cubs. The White Sox will be playing some Central Division action against the Minnesota Twins. The Pirates are at the Angels. The Rays are at the Diamondbacks in Arizona. And the Rangers will head to Sacramento and face the A's in that minor league stadium up there. And that's all the matchups we got for this week. All right, well, it is Monday, and we are getting off the air. Enjoy all the week's games, everybody, and we will be back here soon to talk about it all with you. Adios.
Have a good one.